So when I was at the ripe young age of 19, I found myself sitting right across from a U.S. Senator. I had been working for him for about 6 weeks, and I had been given the opportunity to write a speech for him all by myself. And I initially freaked out, went to the bathroom, threw up a couple of times, made myself settle down, wrote the speech, and I turned it in. Didn't think it was going to go over very well because I had never done it before. And imagine how my heart was absolutely jumping out of my chest when I got a call from the senator's scheduler, and she said, "The senator wants to talk to you in his office." And I thought, oh God, it was really bad. I was so worried. So I go into his office, and he comes and he sits down like this distance from me. I was born to a teenage mother. We grew up very poor in a trailer park, and my grandparents have an elementary school education. So I'm sitting this close to someone with that sort of power, just trying not to cry, because I'm anticipating that he's going to tell me that I'm fired. So what he told me, there we go. So what he told me was my speech was really good. He wasn't going to change a single word. He didn't expect not to have to change a single word. And then he kind of looked at me, and he's like, "You and I don't know each other very well, right?" No, sir, we don't. I had only worked for him for a month. Low woman on the totem pole. There was no need for him to really interact with me. He said, "You know, you are probably going to be underestimated a lot in your career because you're a petite woman with a Southern accent, and you're kind of cute." His words, not mine. And I thought, well, damn, I didn't really know how to take that. I mean, that's not necessarily warm, fuzzy, invigorating advice, right? Didn't really make me want to go out and take on the world and seize the day. Fast forward about 15 years, and I'm working for Kansas City Mayor Sly James. And I had just taken over as chief of staff, and he tells me, "We got to get this convention hotel done. We're building an 800-room convention hotel in downtown Kansas City. We got to get this convention hotel done. You got to go in there and work with these guys, and we got to get this done. We got to get this done." He's in the audience, by the way, as my co-founder to Wickham James Strategies and Solutions. The only thing better than telling stories about him behind his back is telling stories about him to his face. So in I go to this room with about 10, 12 white guy real estate attorneys, labor union representatives, that sort of thing. And I won't go into the long, boring details of those negotiations, but we walked out, and I was feeling pretty damn good about myself. I didn't know anything about real estate development. I have 2 degrees in political science and communications. I'm not an attorney. I know nothing about real estate at that point. But I had gone online, thank you, Amazon.com, and I had purchased a whole bunch of books that first-year law students have to read as part of their courses. So at least I knew what the words meant that these people were talking about. I actually knew what capitalized interest meant. So I'm walking out of that meeting, kind of proud of myself that I had kind of figured it out, at least to a point. And one of the attorneys stops me, and he goes, "What were you doing in there?" I was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "They walked all over you. The mayor is never going to get his hotel." I'm like, well, didn't feel like that to me. Okay, interesting. Carry on with my day. And another gentleman that was in one of those meetings calls me. And I was like, we were talking about something completely different. And I was like, since I have you on the phone, how did you think that meeting went today? He goes, "Well, I couldn't understand why you were so bitchy." And I thought, well, that's interesting. that was the exact opposite of the feedback that I had gotten from another guy who was in the room. So, didn't really know what to do with that feedback at that point. Was I too nice? Too much of a cupcake? Was I too bitchy? Were we ever going to get this hotel built? It's opening in the spring, by the way. And then there was my personal favorite. The time when I was working at the state capitol, and I was given the task of going into the office of the Speaker of the House. Wanted to talk to him about a voter protection bill. Had an appointment with him, walked in, I am prepared, I'm ready, I had researched everything about him, I knew what his concerns were gonna be, I'm ready to do it. And I walk in, it's like, hi, Speaker, nice to see you, I'm here to talk to you about early voting. He says, well, if we're gonna have this conversation, you're gonna have to come sit on my lap. Okay. So I had grown a little bit since I was that 19-year-old sitting beside the U.S. Senator who had told me that I was going to be underestimated my whole career, and I didn't have the confidence or the willpower to argue with him. So I basically told the Speaker of the House to kiss my butt. And I went back and was talking to some of my colleagues. They were like, you told the Speaker of the House what? You guys are never going to get any legislation passed. And then I began thinking to myself, well, was I too bitchy? Should I have acted a different way? So these are my stories based on my experience in politics, but I bet you most of the women in this room have had that experience where you walked out of a negotiation or you ended a conversation thinking, man, was I too much of a cupcake there? Or, ugh, I was probably a little too bitchy, right? I think a lot of us have done that. But I think if we reflect on the power that each of us have, and I'm not going to let the men off the hook either, I think men need to step up and use their power as well to help knock down inequities in gender disparities, then I think we'll see that rather than getting upset and being mad about it, that we have to leverage that type of anger that we feel when we have things like this happen to us so that we can work together to knock down gender equities. So let's talk about power. Preparation. Mentioned that a couple of times in my stories. For me, I feel like if I am prepared for a conversation, my confidence is going to show through. People are going to see that, and it's going to help knock down any gender biases that I might have to deal with. But one thing that I've noticed that I fall into this trap, and that a lot of my female colleagues fall into this trap, is that I sometimes focus more on the people who are going to be in the room and how I'm going to deal with them than the actual subject of the conversations. Have you guys ever done that? Why do we do that to ourselves? You can't control the actions of anybody else. You can control how you react to them, though. And you can control how much preparation that you do for that meeting with a bunch of developers about real estate when you don't have any background in real estate. So, preparation. Ownership. Own the room. Own the situation that you're in using executive presence. We've talked a little bit about this today. Physical presence, meaning the way you look when you enter a room, whether we want to admit it or not. People make a judgment based on what we look like when we walk in the room before we ever say anything. So it's important for us to figure out how we want to balance physical presence with authenticity. And then there's communication presence. Things like eye contact, the cadence of your speech, whether or not you play with your hair. I'm horrible at that. And then there's emotional presence, how you react to difficult situations. Raise your hand if you have been in a situation or in a room and someone walks in the door and you can feel your blood starting to boil. Yes, I think all of us have felt that at some point, yes. But that doesn't do anything to help us control that room and exude executive presence. And it knocks us off our game when we allow other people to have that much control over our mind, right? So we're going to own the room through executive presence. Wisdom, also known as emotional intelligence, something else that we've talked a bit about today. Emotional intelligence doesn't show up very much in politics, believe it or not. But I happen to believe that if we can use some of these power structures, both men and women, to get more women elected in both parties in politics, that we're going to be able to use some of the emotional intelligence traits that just seem to be more natural to women, the nurturing characteristic, active listening, those sorts of things. Energy. It is exhausting to deal with gender bias and racism for women of color. It is exhausting to deal with that every single day, is it not? So it's important for us to figure out ways to keep our energy level and our commitment and our dedication up, whether it be great networking events like this. Thank you, Susan. Whether it be running by yourself in the trail. I love to run by myself in the trail. It's usually the only 50 minutes a day that someone's not talking to me. Whatever it is that helps you keep your energy and your optimism up, make sure you do that. Respect. There is going to be a point in life where you cannot do anything else to improve how someone treats you, and there's going to be a point where you can't do anything else to make a situation better. And it's important to respect yourself and respect your boundaries and know when to say bye. My grandma back in North Carolina always says, you can't make chicken salad out of chicken poop. But that is true, even for people. So I think because we're all here, we can probably all agree that we should knock down gender biases and deal with inequity because it's the right thing to do, right? But it also is going to help our society because, as we mentioned, women have these emotional intelligence qualities that show up in the form of leadership. We just have to get them there. And I don't know if you've noticed, if you watched a lot of TV recently, but there's a ton of conflict in the world right now. So my theory is, if we have more women in leadership and put them in the middle of these conflict situations to use their emotional intelligence and their power, then they're going to be able to create social and organizational change that we need. So I want you all to make sure that you're thinking about the power that you have, whether you're a woman or a man, because we're not letting men off the hook. Think about the power that you have to leverage opportunities to widen the thin line that you feel between being a cupcake and being a bitch. And, thank you. And if it isn't risky enough to put the word bitch in a speech, to Pat's point, I'm taking another risk and turning this talk into a book that will be out in the summer. So I hope you will find me and Wickham James Strategy Solutions and follow us so that you can find it when it comes out in the summer. Thank you.